The man standing at the podium in Berea had just been asked the question that every Cleveland Browns fan had been holding since the moment Kevin Stefanski was fired and the search for his replacement began. The question was simple. The answer was not. Can Shedeur Sanders be your starting quarterback in 2026? Todd Monken looked at the reporter. He paused for exactly the length of time a man pauses when he has thought carefully about what he is going to say and wants to say it precisely. And then he said three words that landed differently than any three words a Cleveland Browns head coach has said about a quarterback in recent memory. Sure he can. Sure he can. Not probably. Not we will see. Not it depends. Sure he can. And then Monken kept going. He said he thought, what you see with Shedeur Sanders is elite playmaking ability. He said that is in him. He said they had seen it. You had seen it. You saw it in college. You saw it on tape last year. And he said, sure, there's a ways to go, but what rookie is not? What first-year player does not have a long way to go? And he said he was excited to get started. That was Todd Monken at the NFL Scouting Combine on February 25, 2026. 25 days later, those words are still the most important thing said about the Cleveland Browns quarterback situation this entire offseason. Not because Monken committed, he did not commit. He maintained the open competition framing that every experienced head coach maintains in this situation, because committing destroys your leverage in the free agent and trade market before you have finished shopping. Not because the situation is resolved. It is not resolved. Rasheed Walker, the best offensive tackle available in free agency, the man who could complete the most important offensive line rebuild in Cleveland history, is still sitting on the open market this morning, unsigned, waiting for a team to give him the contract his ability deserves. Not because the roster disaster is over. Conklin is gone. Njoku is gone. Teller is gone. Over $40 million in dead cap money sits on the books. Left tackle, the most important non-quarterback position on an NFL offense, is still the single biggest unresolved question on this entire roster. But those three words, sure he can, from a head coach who just spent 2 years as the offensive coordinator for the most dynamic offense in the NFL, from a man who watched Lamar Jackson operate inside his system and understands exactly what elite playmaking from a quarterback looks like, those three words are the foundation that everything else has to be built on. And today, on Friday, March 13th, 2026, we are going to tell you the complete story of where the Cleveland Browns stand right now. The roster disaster, the comeback, the man still sitting in free agency who could fix the last missing piece, and the honest, clear-eyed answer to the question of whether Todd Monken backing Shedeur Sanders is enough, or whether the Browns are still one position away from being ready to compete. To understand what Rasheed Walker means to this Cleveland Browns offseason, why his presence on the open market, unsigned as of this morning, represents either the best remaining opportunity or the final unresolved crisis of this franchise's most consequential rebuild in 20 years, you have to start at the beginning. You have to start with where Walker came from and how a player this good ended up as a 7th-round pick and then ended up as the best offensive tackle available in free agency before his 26th birthday. Rasheed Amar Walker was born on February 13, 2000, in Washington, D.C. He grew up in Waldorf, Maryland, a city in Charles County, about 20 miles south of Washington, in the kind of suburban community where Friday night football is a genuine cultural event and where the high school roster is one of the primary ways that college scouts find talent that the major recruiting pipelines have not yet identified. Walker attended North Point High School in Waldorf, where he played both sides of the ball and was remarkable on defense, recording 63 tackles and 11 sacks as a senior, while anchoring an offensive line that helped his team average 37 points per game. 11 sacks from an offensive lineman playing defensive end. That number is not a footnote. That is a physical specimen, a 6'6", 300-plus-pound teenager moving laterally and attacking quarterbacks with a pass rusher's instinct.
It is the kind of performance that makes defensive coordinators want to move him to edge rusher, and offensive coordinators want to keep him where he can protect their own quarterback. The colleges who evaluated him understood exactly what they were looking at. He was rated a 4-star prospect by every major recruiting service: ESPN, 247 Sports, Rivals. He was ranked as high as the number 3 offensive tackle nationally by ESPN. He was the number 47 overall prospect in the 2018 recruiting class by 247 Sports. He was selected to play in the 2018 United States Army All-American Bowl, the most prestigious high school all-star game in the country, reserved for the nation's top 108 players. He received scholarship offers from more than 20 dozen major programs: Ohio State, Michigan, LSU, Georgia, Notre Dame, Maryland, Virginia Tech, and on down a list that reads like a tour of college football's most prestigious addresses. He narrowed his choices to Penn State, Ohio State, and Maryland, took official visits to all 3, and announced his commitment to Penn State in February 2018, choosing head coach James Franklin and the Nittany Lions over the most decorated program in the Big Ten and the school in his own home state. At Penn State from 2018 through 2021, Walker started 32 of 36 career games at left tackle. He was named third-team Big Ten All-Conference as a senior in 2021. He was a team captain. He was, by every account from coaches and teammates and opposing defensive coordinators who had to scheme around him, exactly the kind of left tackle that NFL teams spend their careers searching for. Big enough, athletic enough, and smart enough to protect the franchise quarterback against every pass rush concept in the modern defensive playbook. And then the 2022 NFL Draft happened, and Rasheed Walker, the 4-star recruit, the Army All-American, the Big Ten team captain with 32 career starts on the most important position on the offensive line, did not go in the first round. He did not go in the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth, or sixth round. He slid and slid and slid. A knee injury suffered in his final college season had raised medical flags. His 2021 production had not matched the dominance of his earlier years. Scouts who had loved him coming out of high school began writing phrases like inconsistent footwork and needs to clean up run-blocking technique on their evaluation reports. And on the final day of the 2022 draft, with the third of 4 picks in the 7th round, the 249th overall selection, the Green Bay Packers took Rasheed Walker. The 249th pick, after 248 other players had been selected, from the same recruiting class that had ranked him among the top 50 prospects in the entire country 4 years earlier.
The Packers were replacing David Bakhtiari, the 4-time All-Pro left tackle whose injury history had made his continued availability uncertain, and they needed developmental depth at the position. Walker arrived in Green Bay as exactly that, a developmental piece, a 7th-round project who would spend his rookie year as a backup, learning the system, absorbing the coaching, and waiting for his moment. In 2022, he appeared in 1 game and played 4 snaps on special teams. That was it. His entire rookie season. 4 snaps on special teams in a single game. The 249th pick, who had once been the number 47 overall prospect in the country, playing 4 snaps in Week 17 of his first NFL season, while wondering if the ceiling he had always believed in was going to materialize, or whether the draft slide had told a truer story than the recruiting rankings. And then 2023 arrived, and Rasheed Walker became a starter. He started 15 games at left tackle for the Green Bay Packers in 2023. He earned a Pro Football Focus grade that put him in the top half of starting tackles in the NFL. He helped protect Jordan Love as the Packers' young quarterback took the most important developmental step of his career. And in 2024, Walker started all 17 games, helping the Packers rank 2nd in the entire NFL in sacks allowed, with only 22. 5th in total offense at 370.8 yards per game, 5th in rushing offense, and 5th in yards per play. The first time the Packers had finished in the top 5 in all 4 of those categories simultaneously since 2003. His pass block win rate of 93.8% ranked 11th among all tackles in the entire NFL, not 11th among free agent tackles, 11th among every tackle in professional football. The 7th-round pick from Waldorf, Maryland had become one of the 11 best pass-protecting tackles in the sport. In January 2026, Walker was arrested on firearms charges at LaGuardia Airport in New York. Police noted that Walker voluntarily presented his firearm for proper inspection, but did not have the proper credentials, his out-of-state firearm license not being recognized in New York. His lawyer said he expects all charges to be dismissed. The incident did not cost Walker his market. What it may have done is create a small amount of uncertainty that, combined with a free agent tackle market that is notably deep in 2026, has kept him from the first-day deal that his talent alone would have commanded in most years. As of Friday morning, March 13th, he remains unsigned.
The Athletic projected him at 4 years, $88 million. Spot Track projects 4 years, $81 million. Pro Football Focus ranked him the #1 tackle on the entire free agent market. NFL.com ranked him the #22 overall free agent, and ESPN's Dan Graziano, in his free agency predictions piece, wrote the following under Walker's name. Predicted landing spot, Cleveland Browns. The Browns acquired right tackle Titus Howard in a trade, Graziano wrote, but they still have a vacancy at left tackle. DeJuan Jones is recovering from a serious leg injury. Cleveland ranked in the bottom half of the NFL in both pass block and run block win rate. Walker, Graziano argued, is the natural fit. And USA Today's Tyler Dragon went further. He called the Cleveland Browns the best fit for Walker in the entire league, writing specifically that Walker's profile as a young, proven left tackle who just turned 26 and whose pass protection skills are exactly what a team installing a new, more sophisticated offense needs made the marriage almost too obvious to require analysis. Almost too obvious, and yet, as of Friday morning, Walker has not signed. The market at left tackle has been slower than expected. Braden Smith signed with the Titans for $10 million per year, and some analysts have suggested that number, lower than projected for a right tackle, signals a market-wide depression that might push Walker's final contract below the $80 to $88 million projections. The rumblings, as Dogs by Nature noted on Thursday, are that Walker's contract might come in far less than expected, which, for the Cleveland Browns, who have approximately $8.5 million in current cap space, would need to involve some combination of restructures and cap maneuvering to make work, but which Andrew Berry, who learned his cap management from Howie Roseman at the Philadelphia Eagles, has shown repeatedly this offseason he is prepared to do when the right player is available at the right moment. The Browns have restructured Deshaun Watson's contract already this offseason, converting $44.7 million into signing bonus money and creating $36 million in additional cap space. They have used that space aggressively. Zion Johnson, at 26 years old, at left guard on a 3-year deal. Elgton Jenkins at center on a 2-year deal that Cleveland's medical staff approved the same day Green Bay's failed him. Tevin Jenkins re-signed at right guard. Titus Howard locked in at right tackle through a 3-year extension. Quincy Williams signed at linebacker on a 2-year deal. Jack Stoll added as the blocking tight end who gives Todd Monken the chess piece he built his Baltimore offense around. The offensive line has been completely rebuilt in a week. Every position except one, left tackle, the blind side, the position where, as USA Today noted, Cleveland ranked in the bottom half of the NFL in pass protection last season. The position that, in a pass-first leaning NFL, is the direct line between the quarterback's health and the team's ability to function. The position that Shedeur Sanders, who was sacked 23 times in 8 games as a rookie, who held the ball too long under pressure repeatedly, who needs cleaner pockets and more time to process if he is going to take the next step in 2026, needs to be filled with a player who can hold his own against the best edge rushers in the NFL from the first day of Week 1. Signing Walker would give the Browns a fully capable offensive line heading into the 2026 season, as A to Z Sports' Brandon Little wrote this week, and would free them to take the best player available at number 6 overall in the draft. That player could be Ohio State wide receiver Carnell Tate, the 2025 Big Ten Receiver of the Year, who would give Shedeur Sanders the alpha number 1 target he did not have as a rookie. It could be LSU's Garrett Nussmeier or another quarterback if Barry and Monken decide the competition needs external pressure. It could be a trade-back scenario that accumulates additional capital for a rebuild that, by every honest measure, is still 1 to 2 years away from contention. But signing Walker first, solving the left tackle problem in free agency before the draft, gives the Browns maximum flexibility at number 6. It gives Monken the offensive line he needs to run the offense he built in Baltimore. And it gives Shedeur Sanders the one thing his 2025 season proved he needs more than anything else: time, clean pockets, an offensive line that does not require him to be scrambling for his life on 3rd and 7 before the second receiver has finished his route. Now, Todd Monken and what his backing of Sanders actually means, because the language he used at the Combine, the specific, careful, contextually rich language of a man who has coached at the highest level for 2 decades, deserves to be examined closely rather than summarized quickly. When Monken said, "Sure, he can," he was answering a direct question about whether Sanders could be the starter by opening day. That is not a ringing endorsement of the kind that ends conversations. It is a carefully constructed permission slip, a statement that says the door is open, the path is possible, and the competition is real, without telegraphing a commitment that would undermine his leverage in the remaining off-season moves. But when he said elite playmaking ability, when he used that specific phrase to describe what he had seen on tape from a 5th-round rookie who went 3-4 with 10 interceptions, he was saying something more substantive than what the headline read. Elite playmaking ability is not a phrase that offensive coordinators and head coaches use casually. It is not the equivalent of high upside or shows flashes or we see something there. Elite is a specific word with a specific meaning in football evaluation language. It means the ability to make plays that most players at the position cannot make. It means creating where creation should not be possible. It means the 44-yard bomb to Isaiah Bond late in the season that nobody expected from a quarterback with 10 interceptions and a completion percentage of 56.6. It means the 364-yard, 4-touchdown performance against the Tennessee Titans in Week 14. It means the playmaking in structure and out of structure that Monken described further when he said Sanders surprised him a little bit in terms of his feel in the pocket. That Sanders has a knack, a feel, a real sense of when the pocket is collapsing and how to move within it to extend plays that would result in sacks for a less aware quarterback. That is the language of a coach who has watched Lamar Jackson operate for 2 years and who is now telling the world that the 22-year-old 5th-round pick in his quarterback room has a version of that same instinct. Not the same level, not the same experience, not the same physical tools, but the same instinct, the same feel, the same understanding of how to use the pocket as a tool rather than a fixed location.
Shedeur Sanders' response to Monken's Combine comments was exactly right. When Kay Adams asked him on Up and Adams about Monken saying his role was still to be determined, Sanders said simply, "That's what's expected." That's what's expected. Not defensive, not insecure, not the reaction of a player who was rattled by the open competition framing or hurt that his new head coach had not handed him the job. That is the response of a person who understands that they earned nothing by surviving a rookie season with 10 interceptions and a 56.6 completion percentage and 3-4 record. that the earning starts now, in the film room, in the off-season program, in the first practice of training camp when Monken watches every quarterback on the roster take reps and makes his first informed judgment about who is giving him the best chance to win in Week 1. That is the Shedeur Sanders who posted "Time for work" on Instagram with a fire emoji the moment the Monken hiring was announced. Not a player waiting for his crown, a player ready to earn it. The roster disaster is real. Conklin, Njoku, and Teller are gone. Over $40 million in dead cap. Left tackle still open. Wide receiver room that ranked 31st in passing yards in 2025 still needing its alpha. The Browns are not a finished product on March 13, 2026. They are a team in the middle of a reconstruction that has been more methodical, more intelligent, and more consistently executed than anything this franchise has produced in the 26 years since its return. Andrew Berry has assembled the pieces of an offensive line that, if Walker is added and Bitonio returns, could be one of the best in the conference. Todd Monken has brought a system and a vision and a track record of offensive excellence that gives every player on this roster a reason to believe the scheme will work if the talent executes it properly. Quincy Williams and Myles Garrett anchor a defense that was legitimately elite last season and should be even better in year 2 of Jim Schwartz's system. The draft is 41 days away, with 2 first-round picks and a second-round pick that gives Berry more currency to work with than most rebuilding teams have at this stage of their reconstruction. And at the center of it all, in the quarterback room, in the film sessions, in the early morning workouts before the facility officially opens for the off-season program, Shedeur Sanders is preparing for the competition, for the start of training camp, for the moment when Todd Monken walks onto the practice field and watches his quarterbacks throw and makes the decision that determines the entire direction of this franchise. The man who said, "Sure he can." The man who saw elite playmaking ability where others saw 10 interceptions and inconsistency. The man who built the most dynamic offense in the NFL around a quarterback who makes plays that other quarterbacks cannot make, and who is now in Cleveland, standing next to a 22-year-old with the same instinct, asking him a simple question: are you ready to earn it? The roster disaster is real. Conklin, Njoku, and Teller are gone. Over $40 million in dead cap. Left tackle still open. Wide receiver room that ranked 31st in passing yards in 2025 still needing its alpha. The Browns are not a finished product on March 13, 2026. They are a team in the middle of a reconstruction that has been more methodical, more intelligent, and more consistently executed than anything this franchise has produced in the 26 years since its return. Andrew Berry has assembled the pieces of an offensive line that, if Walker is added and Bitonio returns, could be one of the best in the conference. Todd Monken has brought a system and a vision and a track record of offensive excellence that gives every player on this roster a reason to believe the scheme will work if the talent executes it properly. Quincy Williams and Myles Garrett anchor a defense that was legitimately elite last season and should be even better in year 2 of Jim Schwartz's system. The draft is 41 days away, with 2 first-round picks and a second-round pick that gives Berry more currency to work with than most rebuilding teams have at this stage of their reconstruction. And at the center of it all, in the quarterback room, in the film sessions, in the early morning workouts before the facility officially opens for the off-season program, Shedeur Sanders is preparing for the competition, for the start of training camp, for the moment when Todd Monken walks onto the practice field and watches his quarterbacks throw and makes the decision that determines the entire direction of this franchise. The man who said, "Sure he can." The man who saw elite playmaking ability where others saw 10 interceptions and inconsistency. The man who built the most dynamic offense in the NFL around a quarterback who makes plays that other quarterbacks cannot make, and who is now in Cleveland, standing next to a 22-year-old with the same instinct, asking him a simple question: are you ready to earn it?